What's up, guys? Welcome to today's show. So, today we're going to talk about numbers, integers. And I have created a skeleton for a file called numbers.c. And as always, we will put our code inside of the main function. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user for two numbers. So one at a time, something like, please input a number in the new line. And I will copy this line, and the second time, please input another number, right? And we know by now that we can use the scanf function to read data from the user's keyboard. Last time we used it for characters, and now we're going to use it for numbers. So first of all, we need to define two variables. And as you remember, last time we defined it like this. We said char and then the name of the variable and the size. This time we will not need this size. And I will explain later on why. But for now, just trust me. And this will not be a char, this will be an int. That's short for an integer, which is a number without a decimal point. And then we say the name of the variable. I will call this x in this case. And we need two variables, so let's call it y. And there are two ways we can define this. We could either type in another int statement, like this. And we can have as many as we need. But since both of these are of the same type, both are integers, there is an easier way, and that is to just list them with a comma in between. And like this, we can have how many we want, like this. Alright, so now we have two integer variables. We have room to store two different numbers. And as you might guess, we will use the scanf in order to do this. And if this were a string, like last time, we would have used this syntax, right? But this is not a string, this is integers. And this s will change depending on the type of the variable. So let me put in a comment here for the type that we know. We know about char, which is a character, and the format string, which this %s thing is called, for, or we should be specific, a string of chars. That is %s. We know that already. Maybe I could type this in the beginning, like so. And then we have something, which is integer. And the first thing that comes to mind is perhaps it's an I for integer, but it's not. It's actually a D. And the logic behind that, I'm not really sure about. But you just have to remember that %s means integer. So let's change this to %d. And this will be our x variable. But there is one more thing we need to change. And that can be a little bit confusing. When we are dealing with an integer variable, we also need to put an ampersand in front of this. And why we need to do that, I will tell you a little bit later, because the explanation is a little more difficult to understand, and it will be confusing at this point. So for now, just trust me and put an ampersand in front of the variable name when we are dealing with integers. And one mistake that is often made is that we put a new line character here, because we do that at the end of printf statement, right? But don't do it when using scanf. So two things you need to remember when dealing with integers specifically: add the ampersand, and always when using scanf, no new line after the format string. Alright, so how do we read another number? Well, we repeat the same thing again. So we do scanf and %d, we do an ampersand, and this is the y. So at this point, we will have values, two different values, or the same value perhaps, inside of these variables, x and y. And I'm actually going to define a third variable, which I will be calling result, because I want to do a mathematical operation on these two integers. I want to add them together. And that is pretty simple. If this were mathematics, we would have done something like x plus y is equal to whatever. But it's a little bit reversed when dealing with C programming. We still do x plus y, but we put the result in front. So we say that the result will be equal to x plus y. And don't forget to end with a semicolon. So at this point in time, this result variable will be the sum of these two x and y variables. And then we'll simply print it to the screen like we usually do. We say the result is, and %d, because the result is also an integer. And then we put the result here. And as you can see, here we do not use the ampersand. So this might be a little bit confusing. But at this point, only use the ampersand with scanf and with integers, and a couple of others that you will learn. But for integers, you will have an ampersand in front of the variable when using scanf, but not when using printf. So let's save this and compile. So we'll run gcc numbers.c-o numbers, and let's run this program. Please input a number. I will input 5. Please input another number. I will enter 8. The result is 13. And we are not limited to single-digit numbers. We can enter 55, for instance, and we can enter, I don't know, 9. Okay, this is a little bit too big. 9, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 9 million is okay. The result is 9,055,000. So an integer cannot just hold a single digit, like a char, for instance. But there is a limit. And the limit has to do with how the computer is constructed. So if you have a 64-bit CPU, you can basically handle 64-bit numbers. An integer, however, defaults to 32-bit, which means that it goes from 0 to 4.3 billion, approximately. So if you want to use a bigger number than that, this variable will overflow, so it's called. And we will talk more about what that means later on. But for now, and in this specific program, I would say you could use any number between 0 and 2 billion. So half of this. And why half? That I will explain later. Because you have already learned quite a lot today. You have learned how to define integer variables, how to read them using scanf with an ampersand and the %d format string for integers. You have learned that when declaring multiple variables, you can do it with a comma in between if they have the same type. And you can perform mathematical operations by typing the result variable equals and then the mathematical expression. And you can use printf with a %d format string to print the results of the variable. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. Also hit the bell icon if you want to get a notification, because I will be releasing those episodes quite regularly now at the beginning. And thank you for watching, and thanks for today.